times, Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. It's a prophecy telling us, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Okay, something was coming called Elijah the prophet that was to prepare a people for the coming of the Lord. We know this is a prophecy of John the Baptist, in part. Also another prophecy toward our own times, what we call the Elijah message. But John the Baptist was to come, prepare a people for the great and dreadful day of the Lord. What was his work that was preparing a people for the coming of the Lord? Turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the children to the fathers. It was a work to restore the family. That was the work that was preparing a people for the coming of the Lord. Now turn over to Luke. We see a bit of the same thing here. Luke chapter 1 verse 17. 1 verse 17, "And he, John the Baptist, shall go before him," Jesus, "in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." Again, we see that same theme, a people prepared for the coming of the Lord. At this period in Earth's history, do we need a people prepared for the coming of the Lord? Absolutely we do. What was the work involved with preparing a people for Jesus' coming? Restoration of the family, turning hearts of the fathers to the children, children to the fathers. A work to restore the family is the work that will prepare a people for the last days. We read that just such a work as that of John is to be carried on in these last days. Why? Why did God choose the work of restoring the family as one that was supposed to prepare a people for the coming of the Lord? Why is this doing it? Why not something else? Well, we could probably come up with many reasons why, but I would submit to you one of the greatest reasons why is that it is the most powerful witness for Christianity. Strong families are powerful witnesses in the community. The greatest evidence of the power of Christianity that can be presented to the world is a well-ordered, well-disciplined family. This will recommend the truth as nothing else can, for it is a living witness of its practical power upon the heart. If this is the most powerful witness for the favor of Christianity, would it stand to reason that Satan will do a bit of something to decrease this witness, to attack this witness? Absolutely. He's done that. He's at the world around us, and you can see he is making inroads into our families like never before. Estimates vary, but as many as 80% of our young people are leaving the church now. The divorce rate is nearly in the same inside as outside the church, and that's over 50%. Media use in the U.S. is at 12 hours per day. 12 hours per day. And Australia is maybe 30 minutes behind that on average. It's about the same here. Staggering. The devil's making attacks on our families. Aside from just bad statistics, though, let's consider a moment what our work is, what our purpose is here on this earth. Jesus says what? Go, preach the gospel. Spread the word. Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. That's Christ's command to his followers. Not that all are called to be ministers and missionaries in the ordinary sense of the term, but all may be workers with him in giving the glad tidings to their fellow men. To all, great or small, learned or ignorant, old or young, this command is given. This is our job. Look, you say, "Oh, but that's not my gift. I'm not good at doing that kind of thing." You're absolutely right. It is not your gift. It's your command. It's part and parcel of being a Christian. When you signed up to be a Christian, this was Jesus' orders to you. Go spread the word. Tell the news. It continues to read, in the view of this command, can we educate our sons and daughters for a life of respectable conventionality, a life professedly Christian but lacking his self-sacrifice, a life on which the verdict of him who is truth must be, I know you not. Thousands are doing this. Respectable conventionality. What's respectable conventionality? Well, what's conventionality? It's sort of doing things normal, right? Doing things kind of the way everybody else does them. And you say, well, I'm not that. I'm not conventional. I'm Christian. Well, that's the respectable part. We Christianize normal. As E.A. Sutherland put it, we're Bible-toting worldlings. Are we that powerful witness for the favor of Christianity? Have we really embraced this vision? Sam's up there. He'll get that worked out, hopefully. Or are we too focused on respectable conventionality? The influence, reading the bold there. Oh, not quite. There we go. Thanks, Sam. The influence of a well-ordered, well-disciplined family is far greater for good than the influence of powerful sermons from the pulpit. Look, I can preach here all day long, but it's not making nearly the difference that you can as a family to impact your communities, to impact the world around you, and to spread the gospel. So what kind of sermon are we presenting to the world? Where are we focusing our attention? We have to realize that God has given us this work to do. In His wisdom, the Lord has decreed that the family shall be the greatest of all educational agencies. This is the basic unit. When we read education, a lot of times we automatically think schooling, right? Learning math and science and English. No. Education is life. Education is the process of redemption. Redemption and education are one and the same. God has decreed that the family is the basic unit of instruction, which then feeds into the rest of the community. So where are we focusing our attention? I want to touch quickly on 5 points. 5 ways in which we can sort of be different than the world around us. 5 ways in which society says this is normal, and we could say, yes, society says that's normal, but we as Christians are saying, no, that's not going to be normal for us. First of all, we need to focus on the early years. But you're saying, hang on, we just talked about why we shouldn't be focusing on the early years, right? In reality, we're focusing on the wrong thing in the early years. We're neglecting to focus on what is most important in the early years. We talked about how academics aren't the best thing for the early years. What is important? The areas in the brain that are most responsible for spiritual understanding, for cause-to-effect reasoning, for emotional understanding, the development of relationships, behavior management, language skills, memory, moral understanding, conscious development, and character development. These are critical areas. Nobody wants to be deficient in these things. And the early years are the critical window for the development of all these areas. The brain areas that control these functions develop very, very early on in life. The future happiness of your families and the welfare of society depend largely on the physical and moral education which your children receive. When? The first years. The first years of their life. Secular science agrees with this. In the journal Child Development, we read that a child's conscience emerges surprisingly early in development. Its foundations are laid when? The first 3 years of life. Secular science saying, look, we are laying the foundation for conscience in the first 3 years of life. How important is that? And yet we're all worried about, how they're learning their math or their English or something. No, we need to mix this focus up. We need to be focusing on what is most important early on. It said, give me a child until he is 7 and he will be mine forever. The future of the rising generation is in the hands of parents. For in a great measure, they hold within their control the destiny of their children for both time and eternity. The salvation of the young depends almost wholly upon the training they receive in childhood. When? Childhood. That's the most important time. We need to focus on the early years. So society says, focus on all these other different things in the early years. And we as Christians can say, yes, we are going to focus on the early years, but we have a change of focus. We're going to focus on what really counts in the early years and not just worldly success. Point number 2, we need to limit media. I've pretty well explained this one already, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this. It's at 12 hours per day. It's just insane. 75% of children aged 0 to 8 have access to or even own a smartphone. And yet this is starving children of essential brain development. It's causing attention deficit disorders. It's causing reading and listening problems, causing eye and brain damage. We're told we should keep it at a minimum under age 12. We have to remember, though, again, contrasting, this is the way the world does it. This is the way the world thinks is normal. What used to be normal? Go back 50, 75, 100 years. Was this media-saturated culture as we see it today normal? No, not at all. What was normal? Well, if your child can use a smartphone, they can easily operate any of the above. Right? Isn't that the way it used to be? And kids used to do this kind of thing, and now we think, they can't do that, but they're happy to sit there with a smartphone. What's really ideal for childhood? They need these kind of experiences. And consider it's not just the kids, it's the parents too. a lot of times this media use is separating families from parents, from their children. I heard a report recently on the radio where children, young people, were complaining that they couldn't talk to their parents when they wanted to because, in the words of one young man, he said, every time I want to talk to my dad, he's on his phone. I can't even get his attention, he said. So parents, consider the message you're sending to your children. I saw this picture actually here, and they put a little cartoon graphic over it, and the little boy was thinking, I hope someday I become as important as these phones. What sort of message are we sending to our children? There's a great story about this called Dear Mom on the iPhone. So you could put Android in there too, I suppose. I see you over there on the bench messing on your iPhone. It feels good to relax a little while your kids have fun in the sunshine, doesn't it? You're doing a great job with your kids. You work hard. You teach them manners. You have them do their chores. But Mama, let me tell you what you don't see right now. Your little girl is over there making her dress twirl as she spins round and round, and she keeps looking at you to see if you're watching her, but you aren't. Your little boy keeps shouting, Mom, watch this. And you glance his way, barely acknowledging him. He sees that too. His shoulders slump, and then he goes and finds the next cool thing to do. Now you're pushing your baby in the swing. She loves it, cooing and smiling with every push, but do you see her, or is your head bent, your eyes on your phone as you absently push her swing? Talk to her. Tell her about the clouds, Mommy, the Creator who made them. Tickle her tummy when she comes near you and enjoy that baby belly laugh that leaves far too quickly. Put your eyes back on your prize, your kids. Show them that they are the priority. Wherever you are, be all there. Playtime at the park will be over before you know it. The childhood of your children will be gone before you know it. They won't always want to come to the park with you, Mommy. They won't always spin and twirl and make their new dress swish. They won't always call out, watch me, because there will come a point when they stop trying. Stop calling your name. Stop bothering to interrupt your phone time, because you've shown them all these moments that the phone is more important than they are. They see you looking at it while waiting to pick up brother from school, during playtime, at the dinner table, at bedtime. I know it's not true, Mommy. I know your heart says differently, but your kids can't hear your words, Mommy. Your actions are screaming way too loudly. Point number 3, we need to make character our primary focus. Anyone here gone on a long trip somewhere? Yeah, a few of you probably. I certainly did, coming over here to Australia. And so we can all relate to the packing process as you're getting ready to go somewhere. So probably as you're deciding what to put in your suitcase, you sort of have to think about it a bit. You can't bring everything you want, so you identify a few things that are really important, and likely what you decide to put in your suitcase is whatever you need when you get to your destination, whatever you need that you can't get when you get to your destination. Suppose, though, you're going somewhere and you can only take one item with you, only one thing. Do you go around and just grab some random trinket and just, this looks great, I'll take this with me? Or do you lose sleep over it? You agonize, what's this one thing that I can bring with me on this journey? And once you make that decision, it's probably that one thing that you can't get at your destination. Look, are we on a journey? Are we going to heaven? How many things can we take with us? Only one. That's our character. A character formed according to the divine likeness is the only treasure that we can take from this world to the next. How important, then, is the development of character in this life? Character building is the most important work ever entrusted to human beings. Never before was its diligent study as important as now. God is so much more interested in preparing us for heaven than some university. He's much more interested. Is it better that our children do well on standardized tests or on the test of the last days? What sort of test do we want them to pass? Because when you reach the pearly gates, God won't ask you if your kids graduated with honors. He'll say, how's the character? That's what really matters in eternity. Point number 4, we need to, parents, recognize and accept your primary job. According to the Barna Research Group, successful Christian parents saw parenting as their primary job. They didn't let anything else get in their way. They did not leave the discipling of their children to the church or to the school. And, in these days, we want to outsource everything. We want to let the school take care of the academics, and the church takes care of the spiritual training. And now I just heard about a rich person that didn't have time to spend with his child, so he hired a psychologist to come and talk to them. So we're just outsourcing everything in childhood. let's go back to reality here and realize that successful Christian parenting doesn't outsource it. It recognized that that's your primary job. They also accepted from day one they would be countercultural. They just knew we're going to be different from the world, and that's okay. They were okay with that because they realized that God's normal is vastly different from the world's normal. There's no more important field of effort than that committed to the founders and guardians of the home. No work entrusted to human beings involves greater or more far-reaching results than does the work of fathers and mothers. Point number 5, stay at home. Moms, I know this one gets a bit sensitive sometimes, but we have to realize how important the work of a mother is. We have to realize this is the work God has entrusted with mothers, and there is just no way around that. Families with one full-time parent typically raise more successful children, according to the secular research out there. They just say families that just had a stay-at-home parent typically have more successful children in worldly success standards. Maternal employment by the 9th month is then linked to lower school readiness by 36 months. Single-income families have a high percentage of spiritually strong young adults, according to the Barna Research Group. The work of the mother is incredibly important. I mean, they've done extensive studies on what they call maternal separation, where they take an infant rat or monkey or something like that, and they separate it from the mother, and then they analyze the brain and the hormonal changes and stuff. They found that in rats, separation from the mother for 24 hours will double the rate of apoptosis, which is brain cells committing suicide. Doubling the normal rate. There's a bit of that as a process in brain development as they specialize, but doubled the rate of the brain cell die-off. They found physical alterations to the hypothalamus with a few hours of maternal separation. Hypothalamus deals with the endocrine system, the autonomic nervous system, behavior, metabolism, growth, and development. The hippocampus is physically altered with just a few hours of maternal separation in monkeys. We find the hippocampus dealing with memory, spatial navigation, behavior, and emotion. Nerve cells in the hippocampus are destroyed as a result of stress and elevated stress hormone levels. Every time they run these maternal separation studies, they find a spike in the stress hormone levels, particularly cortisol and ACTH and others. Produces intellectual deficits. Children with the lowest scores on mental and motor ability tests are the ones with the highest cortisol levels in their blood. What's causing the high cortisol levels? It's a lack of maternal security. It's a lack of emotional security early on. Opportunities of inestimable worth. Opportunities, inestimable worth. Can you put a price on inestimable? How much is inestimable? John, you're a businessman. How much is inestimable? No value. It's priceless. You can't put a value on it. You know, we look at these huge numbers in the world. I'm not proud of this, but take the U.S. We're $18 trillion in debt. Can you wrap your mind around that number? I can't. The worth of the mother, is it bigger than that? It is. There is nothing more important. The king upon his throne has no higher work than has the mother. She has in her power the molding of her children's characters, that they may be fitted for the higher immortal life. An angel could not ask for a higher mission, for in doing this work she is doing service for God. Am I reading this correctly? We have God, angels, mothers? No. God, mothers, angels, right? God, mothers, angels. That's the order we're given here. An angel couldn't ask for a higher mission. This is incredible. Let her only realize the high character of her task, and it will inspire her with courage. Let her realize the worth of her work and put on the whole armor of God, that she may resist the temptation to conform to the world's standard. Her work is for time and for eternity. Resist the temptation to conform to the world's standard. The world says mothers should go, do their thing, and go off into these different fields and careers and aspirations. And God says, what's the work I've called you to? This is the most important work. Focus on this important work. Do you desire a life work? This is the one God has given you. Do you want to have an influence? You are in a position for the greatest influence in the world. Do you want to be a power for good? Next to God, you're in the position for the greatest power of good in the world. Do you want to be a leader? Lead your children to Christ. Do you want to be a reformer? Reform your families. The reforms you begin can change thousands. Do you want to bear responsibilities? God has given you a responsibility that's the greatest in the world. Do you aspire to missionary service? If you're faithful as a mother, God will reward your name. Put your name down along with David Livingstone and all the greatest missionaries in the world. Do you want a great work to do? Well, the king upon his throne doesn't have a greater work than the mother. You can't find a greater work to do. It's not even out there. Or do you wish you could just go be an angel? If you were, you'd ask to go be a mother again, because an angel could not ask for a higher mission. There is nothing more important. And I know it is absolutely true, as we read, that when the judgment shall sit and the book shall be opened, when the well done of that great judge is pronounced, and the crown of immortal glory is placed upon the brow of the victor, many will raise their crowns in sight of the assembled universe, and pointing to their mother, say, "She made me all I am through the grace of God. Her instruction and her prayers have been blessed to my eternal salvation." Is there anything more important? I ask you, think about this. Is there anything more important than the eternal salvation of your children? What else matters? Nothing else. So, we've seen 5 points. I just want to mention one other thing, and that is to have strong families, we need to have praying families. This is very important. Pray for strength to follow what God wants you to do. You know, there's a great illustration. In ancient times when you're traveling, you didn't have these high-powered flashlights like we have nowadays. No, you had a little oil lamp you traveled with, and it cast a little glow in front of you. And so you could get all worried about what was up there, but you'd never see it until you got there. So you had to take a step in the light that you had. You had light for one step. Now, as you took this step, what happened? Now you have the light for the next one. And now you have light for the next one. God calls us. God works with us that way sometimes. He says to parents, I haven't given you everything you need to know to raise your children for the next 20 years, but I've given you light now. Make that step. Do what you can right now, and then I'll give you light for further steps. A good friend of mine said in a sermon recently, our ability to understand God's will is directly linked to our willingness to follow it. We have to be willing to obey in order for us to understand what God really wants us to do. So I want to conclude with 2 options. The influence of an ill-regulated family. It's widespread, it's disastrous to all society, it accumulates in evil that affects families, communities, and governments. That's a pretty bad option. How about this one, though? One well-ordered, well-disciplined family that tells more in behalf of Christianity than all the sermons that can be preached. This is what we should be aspiring for. We get our priorities mixed up sometimes. Let's focus on this as our main priority. You know, I think we could change this as a church too. I don't want to sound too critical here. I'm not intending this to be critical, but we spend a lot of money on youth ministry and other things. That's waiting a bit too long, isn't it? Where's the ministry to help the families, to help the mothers, to help pre-youth? You know, that's when it really counts. Let's focus on strengthening our families as a church and as families, just making that a priority. There was a man who wanted to change the world. He got up one morning, it's a parable, a Jewish parable, and so he got up one morning and this was the day he was going to start changing the world. So he looked at the map, and he couldn't figure out where he was going to start. The world's a big place. So he decided, well, I guess I'll start with my own country. That's a pretty good place to start. So he's looking at the map a little more, and he's like, I don't know where to start in my own country. He goes, well, I guess we'll start in my state. If I get the state under control, we can move on to the rest of the world. He thought about that a little more, and he couldn't figure out where to start in his state, and he figured, well, I guess the best place is just to start with my own hometown. If I start with my town, we can affect the rest of the world. Where to start in my own hometown, though? He thought about it a little, and he said, well, my own street. Good place, yeah, a little more manageable. Well, which house do I start with on my street? He thought, maybe I should start with my own family. As he thought about his family, he couldn't figure out, should he start working on his wife, or should he work on his son or his daughter? And then he realized, you know what? I think I better start with me. He said, if you really want to change the world, we've got to start with ourselves. That will then influence our families. That will then influence our communities and branch out into the world. If we really want to make a difference, we will start right close to home. And remember this, we have help. Parents have a great and responsible work to do. They may well inquire, who is sufficient for these things? But God has promised to give wisdom to those that ask in faith, and he will do just as he said he would. We serve an amazing God. He doesn't give parents kids and say, good luck, hope it goes all right. He says, no, I've given you help every step of the way. He has given us wisdom, and we can but stake on faith those decisions. You know, you saw earlier the research that has proven things that we have known for a long time. If we would but have faith to step out and believe the things that we don't have the research for, but we're told, then we would be much better off in the long run, because God's ways always work, guaranteed. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this important calling you've given us, for the work you've given us. Lord, I pray that we'll embrace it with courage, fortitude, and with your Spirit. Strengthen each family here, Lord. Give parents the wisdom they need. Help them to make the decisions they should. And I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, we have just a